Hello and welcome to the DW live show. You lucky guys have just got me again because Dom is still on his road back to recovery. Get well soon, Don. I don't think it'll be long now. So hope you're all okay and ready for this week's masterclass and all slightly buzzing after Boris's announcement last night. You know, I know it wasn't as quick as we all want, but hey, at least we got a roadmap and we know where we're going. So all good news. So we are here today to have a fantastic masterclass from my good friend and fellow Liverpool FC supporter, although we're not doing very well at the moment, Neil Fellows from Stellar Speakers. Neil is a fantastic guy. He's going to give us an amazing masterclass about how we can all become 5K speakers, you know, with a bit of training and a bit of tips and a bit of impetus. So Neil's going to give us all these tips. So we're really looking forward to the show. So we've got loads coming up. We've got the DW live show coming up, another really funny and entertaining panel. By the way, you can get involved with that if you want to. As usual, we're going to be live on Facebook and we are live on YouTube as well. I'm just going to ask Callum to quickly flash up our YouTube channel here. We've got, we could do with everybody subscribing to this. It will really help us as a business. You know, we can try and grow. We can get, increase the number of subscribers. So please, guys, just give us a quick follow on that. That would be really, really helpful. So we also got to say a big thank you to our sponsors for this season, Eventer, who are doing a great job. We've got some content coming up from them. We've also got to thank Stream and also Events Case for doing registration. So without any further ado, I think the first thing we'll do is show our message this week from Eventer, and then we'll come back to the chat room and say a quick few hellos to everybody.
Open Day is for people who come to UQ to experience what we have to offer and to see what courses they may be interested in studying.
It traditionally takes place on our St Lucia campus and has between 20 and 25,000 people attending. So it's a massive event that has only ever happened in person.
So in 2020, because of COVID, we had to take it all online. We looked at different providers and we were really happy with what Eventshare could offer.
Running this as an online event for the very first time meant that we were able to open this event up to people all across Australia, and vitally important for us was being able to open it internationally. We had over 100 different countries attend the event on the day. For us, that's just fantastic because we've never been able to have that before.
We deployed a team who basically worked with the UQ team to set up the agenda and all the touch points for the students.
I was part of the initial Eventshare team that worked on the UQ Open Day project that helped them produce a fully branded UQ registration site, confirmation email, as well as the on-air portal. I also assisted with getting the entire team trained up and just provided best practices for the event.
So we provide a really bespoke, hands-on turnkey service to help customers set up the portal, set up the technology, and then run the event on the day.
Eventshare were great. They offered us a lot of help, a lot of guidance along the way. They held our hand. We used the project management support. So they were just brilliant.
We were so happy with the outcomes this year. We could never have run the event without the help of the on-air platform.
And the way that the environment is at the moment, it looks like hybrid events are here to stay.
We've already got 3 more events and more planned for 2021.
So a huge thank you to our good friends at Events for all their support with this season. So on with the show. I'm now going to introduce Neil Fellows, who's going to be running this masterclass today about, how we can all make money as a speaker. A masterclass, I mean, it's going to be amazing. There's going to be so many things that you're going to learn from this, guys. I mean, it's not just about you being a presenter and a speaker. It's also about how you can use these skills every day, when you're talking to your clients or your customers or your peers or anything like that. It's going to be lots of good takeaways to grab from this. So without any further ado, I am going to say hello, Neil. How are you?
Hi, Neil. Good to be here with you this afternoon, sharing this with you. First thing, can I just say it's really strange being interviewed by another Neil. It's a bit like looking at yourself in the mirror, but for me, there's a better looking version of myself looking back at me because you're a good looking.
I don't know about that. I'll tell you a funny story. One time I was sitting on a registration desk when I was an event manager, and the client insisted on me having a name card out, a tank card with my name on it. And then this other guy in another meeting at the hotel walked up to me and just put a card in front of me, and his name was Neil Thompson. And I was like, whoa, this is really strange. What's going on?
Weird. Yeah.
So it's not so often you meet another Neil. Anyway, Neil, so do you want to give us a bit of background? Do you want to give us a bit of background about yourself and Stellar Speakers, and then just run straight into the masterclass, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'd love to. What I'd like to do, Neil, just getting started, is just to sort of play a little game with everyone, if everyone will play along. If you just look at your screen just for a couple of seconds, what I want you to do is just to put your hands together like this, and then very slowly, I want you just to clap your hands 3 times, and then I want you to look at where your thumbs end up at the end. So if you just do it with me, so we'll just do this slowly. 1, 2, 3, and just look at where your fingers end up. Does your left thumb, is it over your right, or is your right thumb over your left, or are the 2 thumbs actually together? And a bit later on, what we'll do is we'll look at the results of that as we start to look at the psychology of your audience. And so we'll come back to this in a little bit. The first thing to say is just sort of introducing myself, is that I'm really today talking to 2 groups of people. We've got people who are in the events industry, who have a role involving booking speakers, and who want to maybe really understand what they can expect when they're looking for a 5K plus speaker for an event that they're running or planning for a client. And then we've got a group of people who we're talking to, really, who are speakers who want to charge 5K plus for a keynote, and they want to know what it is that they need to do in order to be able to charge that amount of money. So what I want to just start off by thinking about is that we've all got an interesting story to tell, and in front of the right audience, you really can bring that to life because it becomes relatable and engaging. And as I'm talking, what I'd invite you to do is to think about what that could be for you as a speaker, what your story could be. And what got me started, if I go back and look at how I've ended up where I am today, the first thing for me was that I was always curious about what inspired or motivated people to take action. I was a captain of a couple of, Neil's already mentioned Liverpool, but I used to love playing football when I was younger. And I was a captain of a couple of football teams, and I was always interested in what motivated and inspired my teams and players to take action and to be the best that they could be. And then later on, that kind of evolved a little bit, and I used a similar kind of mindset when it came to girlfriends. Getting a first date was it's never a problem for me. God, I can't believe I actually just said that out loud. But when you've had that first date, let's say the first date was on a Saturday or something, and then you've got that kind of, do you make the call to the girlfriend on the Monday or the Tuesday? Does that seem a bit too kind of early and a bit needy, or do you leave it till the Wednesday? So I like to just kind of cut to the chase with this, and actually just, when you're on the first date, get past the awkward thing and just say, look, really enjoyed myself today. I'd love to take you out again. Love to go and see this movie. How do you fancy, going out on Friday or Saturday? So, and then we could get to the sort of the yes or no really quickly. And then that naturally led to me obviously working in a sales environment for an insurance agency. And at that point, I had no idea that some of the skills that I'd learned in life up to that point were actually going to serve me probably as a speaker agent going forward, particularly the skills that I learned within sort of sales. But between the insurance industry role and becoming a director at Stellar Speakers, there were a number of interesting events in my story. Having met Jo, my wife, we began running events together, and over the course of a couple of years, we ran 120 live events. And what this gave me the opportunity to do was to book speakers that I really wanted to see and really wanted to learn from. So I was able to watch some really good speakers. I also saw some pretty bad speakers as well, and a lot that was in the middle. But what was interesting for me, because I'm interested in psychology and to say what motivates and inspires people, I got to watch people's body language in the room from the back of the room. I was able to see how a speaker, when they were engaging people, what happened. People were leaning in, and what happened when people were thoughtful, when they were leaning back, and also when they weren't quite sure of what they were hearing and, maybe became a little sort of critical and maybe leaning over to one side with their arms folded or something. And then around 2008, 2009, we kind of started to work with a different medium. We started to work with teleseminars. So we ran our first teleseminars where we had maybe sort of 70 or 80 people that came along to them. And then that escalated very quickly to an event where we had 1,000 attendees. A little story on this sort of first event where we hit 1,000 people. When we looked at our diary in terms of when we could run this event, we found that the only time we could run it was 4 days before Jo and I were due to get married. And we'd got all of everything arranged. We got family coming in and all that kind of stuff. And we went to run this event. And Jo's mum, she's a very lively character. And Jo said, well, it's okay, I'll take her out for dinner, and we'll have dinner. You go and do your teleseminar, and then we'll come back when you're finished. So I was 20 minutes into the teleseminar when the door flew open and Jo's come in a panic saying, no one can hear you, the line's dropped. And so we thought about what we were going to do, and we decided, okay, well, look, we'll pick it up, we'll carry on, we'll just start from scratch again. And then we decided that we would also run another event a couple of days later, which was similar to what we were doing, but with a different angle. So we're then kind of 48 hours away from actually getting married. And I learned quite a lot during that week. Largely don't run events before you're doing a big personal event as well. And then from there, 2009 going into 2010, we actually put another event together where we were running an online multi-speaker event. So this is about a decade before most people started running multi-speaker events. We had 2,500 people registered for that event. And on the day that we were due to launch, a client had asked us if we would actually go down into London and help them with an event, which all seemed quite easy to do because obviously we got the web pages and they were going to take care of everything. But an hour before we left to head to London, the server went down on the website. So we spoke to the host and they said, okay, we'll get it back online. It'll probably take us a couple of hours. So we've headed down into London. We got there. The server's all back up and running, but the web pages are nowhere to be seen. So this is back in the old days where you would build a website on Dreamweaver and then upload the FTP file with a click and drag. The only thing was all of our files were back at home on my PC, and we were in London. So I had to get my dad to drive my daughter around and click and drag. And she was 8 years old at the time, click and drag all of the files across. And I'm sure, as I'm talking here, we've all had our tech experiences at some point, probably in the last 12 months for a lot of people. But I'm sure everyone can probably really appreciate that. But we've now run over 200 online events and trainings. And I think that running that many events with so many attendees, we've learned pretty much everything that can go wrong with tech and how to manage and navigate our way around those things. But people were seeing what Jo and I were doing online, and they were quite interested in how we were doing these events, and also quite interested in the speaking side of things. So we had people coming to us for both things. They wanted the tech, but they also wanted some coaching and some help with their speaking careers and building those careers. And a couple of years into sort of doing this and helping people, I was at another event watching a speaker who really connected with me. And I wanted to go and speak to this guy, but he was mobbed at the end. There was a big love fest on the stage at the end of it. And I thought, I'll drop him an email rather than go and get involved in that. And it's at that point he introduced me to Kelly Tyler, who's the founder of Stellar Speakers. What I love about the dynamic we've got at Stellar is that Kelly's one of those people who really gets speakers. She really gets what's unique and different about them. And while she's doing that, I really enjoy the matching process of helping an event organizer discover what they really want, because companies don't always know what they want these days, especially at the moment. They've kind of got an idea or a theme that maybe they want to fulfill on, but they're not quite sure how to get there. And then Jo comes in, my wife comes into the other side of this business, because she can really help people, help speakers to scale their business with multiple income streams and multiple teams of income as well. I think that Stella's quite unique with the trio of us. We, quite a unique agency in that we really want to help our change maker speakers develop their careers. What I was wondering is, it might be fun if we maybe do a poll and just find out where everybody is with their speaking careers at the moment.
Yes, okay. It's just, I'm just going to put it in the chat now, guys. It should be in there now. So now, job. Itself. You actually learned as you were going.
Sorry, Neil, you cut out there, and I can't hear you.
Sorry, is it something that you learned? You learned to work as a speaker bureau. Is it something you just developed naturally from working in events before?
I think it is something. I mean, it's as I say, learning from the other speakers that I was watching. That was really helpful, because I was able to see what they were doing that was really good or not so great, and then I did a lot of training myself with other people who were really great speakers to understand what went on for a speaker. The good thing about being an agent, though, is I don't have to speak very often. I've got other people who can who go out and do this. So this is quite a unique event for me to come and speak to you.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Really, the shoes on the other foot.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just wondering. I've learned a lot from running our own events and coaching speakers. I'm just wondering if it would really help sort of event organisers and speakers to know what I feel would instantly elevate someone into that 5K category. Would that be helpful?
Absolutely. I think some of the people watching will be, here for that, as well as all the tips that you're going to give us. But I think some people will be speakers already, and want to know how to take themselves to the next level.
Yeah, I'm sure. So there are a number of things that I think really instantly lift you into that sort of 5K plus category. For example, having a high profile background would kind of do the trick. Being a director of a renowned company, we've got Dave Coplin, who is the former chief envisioning officer at Microsoft. So his kind of background elevates him into that 5K category straight away. If someone was a retired sports star, or even a sports star currently, that would help as well. We have a former Olympian, Mark Foster, on our books, who would fall into that category. If you're a media personality, we've got Janie Lee Grace, who fits into that. She's a BBC radio personality with Radio 2, and she's also worked with George Michael and Boy George in the past. If someone was a leading thinker or disruptor in an industry, or a specialist, I would put Roy Shepherd in that kind of category, former BBC presenter who's used to thinking on his feet, and he's a specialist MC and facilitator. Other sort of titles, for example, could be being a well-known politician or an ex-politician. We've got Michael Portillo as one of our speakers. We've also got former West End lead Richard Tyler, and former economic advisor to the White House, Pippa Malmgren. So these are kind of all speakers with credibility who easily fit into that 5K up to sort of 50K for a keynote. But not everyone has got that kind of background to support them. The reality is, if you don't have that kind of background, then you're going to need to become quite deliberate in your actions that you take in order to develop yourself. You're going to have to become a superb presenter. You're going to have excellent content. You're going to need to develop your speaking assets as well that can show you in action and prove your return on investment.
Just going to ask you on that, Neil. Sorry, Neil. Yeah. I was just going to ask you on that. So, assuming that not everybody, comes from that background of excellence, as in, a sporting hero or being in the public eye or run a successful business, and you want to get forward. I mean, how important is, I think, you might tell us differently, but how important is the content that you're talking about? Is it the whole package? Have you got to, be able to present well, have amazing, mind-blowing content, or really forward-thinking ideas? Are these all the kind of assets that you need to have?
Yeah. So if you're looking at that 5K level, then I would say that you definitely need to have all of those things that you just mentioned in place there. If you're just starting off, then obviously it's a journey that you're going to go on. You're going to need to develop those assets over time. You're going to need to be able to prove your return on investment. You're going to need to develop a show reel as you get onto more and more stages, because as event bookers look at you, they want to have confidence that they're making the right decision for the money that they're spending. But one of the things that we can do today, Neil, is we can look at how you can make really good money from stage in other ways before you get to that sort of 5K sort of level.
Great.
Yeah. So did you have something you were going to say, Neil?
No, I was just going to say, great. I think that's important. It's a very much a journey, isn't it, as well? I mean, it's a journey that I think I'm probably on at the moment, where speaking at quite a few things, industry things, but not really, well, a little bit outside my industry, but not too much. But I'm all ears about this.
Yeah, cool. I'm just wondering, actually, I started off today saying about a story, having a relevant story, relatable to your industry and the people that you're talking to. And I'm wondering if, as I was talking, if one was coming to mind for you that might sort of really help you in the future. Probably
the journey of the Delegate Wranglers, really, to go from, zero people in the group to where we are now. It's been quite a journey, and it's been up and down like most people. So I think, I think you may come to this later in the show, but I think a lot of telling those kind of stories is all about pacing and, not just giving the whole lot right at the beginning, kind of building towards it. So am I in the right kind of ballpark?
Yeah, no, it's great to hear that. I mean, Delegate Wranglers is a great story. I think, you've got a fantastic group that you're building here, and there's something in there. And there's probably more, there's what got you into running Delegate Wranglers in the first place. And that may be actually the more interesting story. Delegate Wranglers is the icing on the cake, isn't it? But there might be something behind that you want to go to.
Yeah, honestly, so many things that I always think that once you get, I'm 51, and once you kind of get to this age, if you've got all your different skills that have got you to this point, really, and all the experience that you've built up along the way, that suddenly bring you to everything just making sense. That, I learned how to do that, and I learned how to do that, and I've got that skill, and I've got that skill. And it's taken that, which, it's taken me 50 years to get to that point where I think I know, I know what my purpose is. But yeah, you're right. There's lots of things along the way that have got me to this point. A lot of, it's not the 7 years that we've been running the Delegate Wranglers. It's the 43 years before that that's got me to, be able to run a successful group like this. And I don't think I've made it, by the way. I'm not saying that like I've made it. I just mean in terms of my skill set and what I'm done. No, I mean, my skill set. I'm talking about my particular skill set and what I could tell other people about, and hopefully, let other people learn from my mistakes and, the things I've done well and the things that I haven't done so well.
Yeah. Yeah, nice one. Yeah. There's if you look back, in your journey, I was looking back and just giving you some of the insights in what, the small threads, if you like, that got me to where I got to. In my story, just looking back to those kind of school days and the sports days, and who'd have thought that when I was doing that I'd have ended up becoming a speaker agent, and who'd have thought I'd been here today talking to your fantastic group of people.
Yeah, Neil, thank you. I've just got a couple of questions, really good questions in the chat room. If I can get my, if now would be a good point to ask them. So, Celia, question from Celia Gaze in the chat room. Hi, Celia. By the way, I will say hello to everybody. Sunday I forgot to say hello to everybody, so I will say hello at the break. I'm such a pro. Celia Gaze says, if you've published a book, does that help with speaking? Does it help because you've kind of got all your messages down in a book, I guess?
It's one of those things that adds credibility for you as a speaker, because especially if that book happens to be a bestseller, it definitely adds something to that. It's also one of those assets that you can take with you on a speaking event. You can have your book at the back of the room. It's something that people can look at and buy. It's particularly good, I think, for a speaker, especially when they're not being paid. It's one of those things that you can sell at the back of the room and make some money from and introduce people to you. I mean, there are other things as well you can think of, is like how the book can be just used more like a business card that can point people back to your website, to a free download, so that you could get people onto to a mailing list.
And Neil, I also think it gives you credibility as well. If you've written a book, I mean, I haven't written a book. It's on my to-do list, but I think it gives you, it's a lot of effort that goes into writing a book, and I think getting down your thoughts. So surely you can tap into those thoughts as well as people thinking, that you're a credible speaker.
Exactly, because what you're doing when you're writing a book is you're actually getting your methodology down on paper, and you're working all of that out in your own head, which actually makes it easier for you to break down when you come to delivering on stage. I mean, the other way of using a book, obviously, is you can give a book if you've been invited to speak to an audience, and let's say they're paying you $5,000 plus for being there. You could also include your book in that package as a kind of nice surprise and delight for that group of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
That answers your
really good idea. Yeah, I'm just going to give you the results of the poll as well, guys. So we've had, we haven't had anyone who's spoken at over 100 events. 7% of people who voted have spoken at 50 to 99 events. 53% have spoken at 1 to 49 events, and 40% are getting started. So very much everybody's got either just started on the journey or just taking the first steps and got a few presentations under their belt. So thanks for that, guys. A really, really interesting thing. What does that say to you, Neil? Is that kind of what you expected?
It's great, actually, in terms of where I was thinking that we would go next, actually. And maybe just talk about, before we go to the break, just talk about the number one mistake that speakers make when they're putting the presentations together. Because I think that for those people who are getting started, I think this would be a really valuable piece to look at. So the short answer to this actually is when you're looking at you creating your presentation, a lot of people do just start that presentation in the wrong place. I've had many coaching sessions where a speaker would kind of show up to that session inspired because they've got a new idea. But my questions are always about who is the audience and who's going to pay you for this presentation. Because I always think that when we know who, then it's very easy to start thinking about what. And when you know what, it's very easy to address where, as in where do you want to take people to at the end of your presentation. And then sort of it's easy to fill in with the why and the how. So if I just talk you through the process that I went through when Neil asked me if I would come and give this presentation for you, the first thing I asked Neil was, who am I going to be talking to? And Neil, you were able to give me some fantastic stats of who's actually within Delegate Wranglers. So it really broke that down for me. And then we started to talk about what those people really wanted. So who we could help in that 45 minutes and where I wanted to end up at the end of that time. And then that told me what I would need to do during the 45 minutes in order to help you immediately. So that
if I could just jump in there, Neil.
Yeah.
If I could just jump in.
Sure.
One thing I've got to tell everybody, guys. Neil asked the most questions at that point when I spoke to him. He asked the most questions out of any guest we've ever had on here. So I think it's that's not to the denigration of anybody else, but it's a really important thing. You need to know as much data about the people you're speaking to and what they would like to. Neil asked me loads of questions. I was on the phone for about 3 hours with him. No, I wasn't. But but no, Neil, you're right. You did ask a lot of questions. Definitely the most by any guest on here so far.
And mostly it's because and this is a value of Stella's, we want to make sure that we're leaving behind lasting value. So that's one of the key things for all of our speakers. They're change makers and they're people that will leave value after they've left the room. So that really is the thing that I really wanted to say, Neil. It's really important to start with the end in mind. Just start by asking that question, who am I speaking to? And then build your presentation from there rather than having an idea and then trying to force that into a group of people. So that's what I would say kind of on that one. So great, we've got the poll results. That was really fascinating as well, Neil, because that shows us as well within Delegate Wranglers, where your speakers are at the moment and what kind of potential help they need in terms of development. So we did also the hand clapping at the beginning. It'd be great to know what people did. Did anyone sort of show anything in the comments, Neil, in terms of where their thumbs ended up?
Yeah, there was a mixture. I think it was more right hand over left. I was left over right. There were a few of us left over right. Anybody who did that exercise before, do you want to just let us know what you did in the chat if you can? That'd be really useful. And Neil, I want you to tell us what it signifies.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a little game, really. So if you've got your left thumb going over your right, these people are the thinkers. Okay. And if you've got your right thumb going over the top of the left one, then these people are the entertainers. And if you've got the two thumbs together, these people are the ones that think they're entertaining. So just a little game, really. I mean, it's not something to take too seriously, but what I also want people to think about is that in your audience, whenever you're speaking, and we'll talk more about this perhaps after the break, Neil, but in your audience, whenever you're speaking, you're going to have introverts and extroverts, and there's certain things that you're going to need to do to engage those people within your presentation. So we'll talk more about that perhaps in a little while.
Fantastic. Yeah, Neil, I'm glad to say that I'm a thinker naturally, of course. Wouldn't expect anything less. I don't know, a bit of an entertainer as well, a bit of both. I am, I think. So I just got a few people say, Jeanette London. Jeanette's on the show next week, guys, by the way. I'll talk about that later. Says, I was left over right, but she's more of a dreamer than a thinker. Love that, Jeanette. Right. So, Neil, thank you. That's really fascinating. I'm looking forward to part 2 of your masterclass in a second. So, guys, as you know, we have got we've been doing the DW live show panel every week. They're really entertaining. If you want to get involved, drop me a line to info@thedelegatewranglers.com. I will ask Diane to put that in the chat room. We'd love you to get involved, guys. It's a bit of lighthearted. It's a lighthearted question each week. A bit of fun. You can either answer it in a funny way or a serious way. We've got different subjects all the time. So they're really good fun. And look out for an extra special guest in a couple of weeks. You'll really enjoy it. So without any further ado, I would like to run this week's DW live show panel.
What what do you mean, get back to work? I haven't stopped working. What you mean is, how will it feel when we get back to work and we have to put heels on?
I think the 3 words to describe how I'm going to feel when we can eventually get back to work is, number 1, really excited. Number 2, probably quite relieved after everything that we've all gone through. And number 3, perhaps a bit nervous or maybe apprehensive, because we're putting so much weight on getting back to normal, what's business going to be like, and everything, that I feel nervous in case it's not as we expect it to be, or we don't have the boom that we're all waiting for.
I think relieved. I think excited. I think optimistic. Yeah, optimistic.
I'd probably say confident in that we are all able to deal with anything that comes our way. I think 2020 has proved that. I would say excited. In person is just not the same as virtual. I'd say probably apprehensive. I know some delegates may be a bit scared to come back to events.
Definitely excited, definitely relieved, and probably a little bit anxious. That you've been out of practice for a little while, so how will everything go? But yeah, definitely excited and ready to get going.
I'll feel relieved, motivated and excited when we can get back to the glorious nature of what our industry is. Excited because we've got so much to give, and as soon as we are able to do that and provide amazing experiences, we will. So fingers crossed it's sooner rather than later.
3 words for when we get back to work: relief, enjoyment. Just want to get back to work, Neil. That's all it is.
Hi guys, so there you go, another fantastic DW live show panel. Thank you so much to all the guys for tuning in and joining in with that. Love Rob's one at the end. You could see the passion, just wants to get back to work. So amen to that. Neil, before we continue, I've got a couple of really good questions in the chat room, if that's okay. I know Kelly from your team has been answering some of them, but a really good one from Chrissy, who said, if you're offering something different and you're not a sporting person or written a book or a well-known figure, how do you get in the door with a speaker agency? So I think Kelly's give her your details, your application form of how you can do that. And guys, we'll put that in the wrap up at the end of the show as well. So that's really good. Have you got anything to add to that, Neil, or is that a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we're really keen on at Stella as an agency is helping our speakers develop. We're not just an agency that takes on all of the top talent. We're interested in helping people get their careers started, or people who are somewhere in the middle. We're interested in helping them develop. The one thing that I would say really is different about us is that we're always looking for people who are change makers. So we like to see that you can leave lasting value and change in the world after during your presentation, but afterwards as well. But yeah, what Kelly's given there is the application form. So
great.
The link to the application, cool. And just invite people who think they're ready to come along. We'll soon tell you whether or not you're ready.
Yeah, I've got another one from Monty, which kind of links to that as well. So hi, Monty. He says, I'm intrigued. If speakers come up with unique ideas or concepts that haven't been discussed before, is there a way to build that knowledge about what they do? And I don't know if he means beforehand or during the presentation.
So would you mean educating the audience before you go along to the event? Or
yeah, maybe you've got a great idea, and you want to approach somebody to speak at a conference or something. How do you get across? I mean, are we talking using social media? Do you give little snippets? You don't want to give the whole. I think what he means is you don't want to give the whole game away.
Yeah. So I think what I just go back to is what I said a few minutes ago, just before the break. I always think about who first, and then I would think about the content. And I think what Monty's thinking about here might be actually coming from the other way, which is I've got a great idea and I now want to feed that in, force that through the door, if you like. And I personally, I'm not a great fan of that kind of approach. But having said that, it's always great when a speaker has an idea, because you've got to start somewhere, right? Speakers got to have some idea of what they want. But where I would take this, first of all, is I would try this probably on some smaller stages and get some traction, and then from there, you'll see that people will start to invite you because they're inspired by what they've seen. That could be another approach to it.
Yeah, it's a similar question from Odette. Hi, Odette. Worked with Odette a long time ago. Hope you're okay. What advice could you give those starting out? How do they approach companies about speaking if you don't have a show reel? Which is a really good point as well, how do you get them to even know who you are? I guess the first step might be registering with somebody like yourselves, building up your skills, building up your portfolios, offering to do panels, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just a case really of getting out there on the speaking circuit. When local networking groups start again, being able to get along to a group where you can speak would be a great starting point, because you probably find that there are people, who are leaders in their organization that will go to those events. And if they can see you in action, then maybe they can pick you up from there and you may get your foot in the door. But I would say largely at the beginning, it can be about your network. It's who you're connected with, and then building the relationship with those people over time. It's never about, here's who I am, the next message. If you're contacting someone on LinkedIn, for example, I get quite a lot of people do that. But if let's say the first step is to reach out to someone and have a conversation with them. Often what happens is that as soon as I connect with someone, they'll download all of their information to me about why I should sign them as a speaker. And that's not necessarily going to work for me, because I want them to fill in the application form and go through that process. So I would say to Odette, probably your own network, and build your own network of people who may book you, and begin the conversation gently and just get to know those people over time.
Okay, great. Okay, Neil, I'm aware we're against time a little bit. I've still got a couple more questions. And guys, keep them coming in. That includes the people on LinkedIn as well. Hope you're all okay. Please send your questions in the chat on LinkedIn. YouTube, I meant, sorry. I'm just going to say a quick hello to a few people. Chrissy, hi Chrissy. Mandy Jennings, Janice, Jeanette, Kelly, hi Kelly, Kate Conway, Joe Wicks, hi Joe, hope you're okay. Lots and lots of people in the chat room, guys. So keep your questions coming, keep your engagement coming, and over to you, Neil.
Yeah, so thinking the next thing probably to talk about is the most critical part of a presentation, and sort of how to do it well. For me, the most critical part of a presentation is really in that first 5 minutes or so. It's developing the credibility and relating to people and getting the audience to think and maybe engage while you're telling your story. Now, I mentioned, as I was telling my story, I mentioned the importance of the story and everyone having a story, because I wanted you to engage your own mind in that. I also, as I was going through, I started to bring in some of the dates and stats because there's a certain group of people in the audience who would be interested in knowing that, so that everything stacks up for them. And I also asked that question about tech, tech going wrong. And, we've all had that, because the important thing there was to start to build a little bit of empathy with people. And then we had that bit of fun with clapping our hands. And that's just to engage a certain group of people in the audience as well. In this first few minutes of a presentation, in the bit that I call the credibility piece, there's a heck of a lot of psychology going on at this point. We're building credibility with the audience. We're showing a bit of vulnerability. We're showing empathy. We're telling our story, but we're also engaging the audience as well at the same time. So as I say, there's a lot going on. And when you're doing this and you're speaking to an audience, you want to be aware that there are different personalities in the room, at play within the room. So Peter Johnson, one of our rising stars at Stellar, uses a methodology called insights discovery. And I always find this it's a really useful framework to be thinking about, when I'm thinking about doing a presentation, because I think the speaker world has changed, and it's no longer just about being a speaker who could rock up and inspire or motivate people. We're moving more and more into kind of a leaving lasting change. That's, I think, what speaker bookers are looking for. They're looking for that lasting change and ROI from people. So when we're thinking about engaging, we need to know who's in the room. So then what could be a bit of fun if I talk about the different personalities, and if people want to identify themselves as what kind of personality they think they are, maybe we could just run a quick poll on that.
Yep, I'll do that now.
Okay, brilliant. So there are 4 groups of people. We've got what we call the fiery reds, we've got what we call the sunshine yellows, we've got the earth greens, and the cool blues. So the cool blues, these are people who want detail. They want stats, they want references, and they process things quite slowly. They're looking for detail. They're going into depth. The earth greens, these are a group of people that really want to understand. They want you to give examples. They want you to go slowly. They want to be able to absorb the information. Then we've got the sunshine yellows. Now, these are people who generally want to be entertained. They want to be shown something. They want to hear a story, and they want to be engaged through that story. Then you've got the fiery reds, and these are people who want things quickly. They want headlines. They want things that they can take away and that they can use now. So they want that information to be packaged to them and given to them really quick. So the fiery reds are generally business owners or top execs, and they're often entrepreneurs. The sunshine yellows are usually people who are in PR and marketing. Sometimes they're in sales, and I'll come back and talk about sales in a second. And then the greens are your health professionals, usually they're care workers, they're in customer service. And then you have the cool blues, who are usually in tech, they're accountants, they're lawyers, or they're civil servants. So the way that you'd identify these is you would notice if you were standing on stage, let's say looking out at your audience or at the front of the room before an event starts, just observing, you would see that your cool blues might be standing alone or sitting alone, or they'll be in small groups. And they won't be talking unless there's something of any consequence to say. They might be sort of sipping their tea and maybe having a light conversation, but only if there's something worthwhile to say. Whereas your greens, these will be people that may take their seats early. They want to get themselves organized. They want to make sure that they're sitting in the right place for them. They want to be comfortable. And they'll often be in the middle to the back of your audience, and they'll have a notepad and usually some way of taking some notes. Then you've got your yellows. Now, your yellows, if you're observing these people in a queue, they'll be talking to the people in front of them and behind them. They're always chatting. They'll probably sit in the front row of your audience. They'll probably be fiddling on their phones, connecting with the world while they're listening to you. And you may have trouble getting them to sit down in the first place when you start presenting. And then the fiery reds. Well, the fiery reds, these will be the last people to arrive. They'll probably be the first people to leave. They'll probably sit in the middle of your audience, in the middle of a row. And when they get up to leave, they'll probably disturb the whole row and wave at you as they're leaving, shouting their apologies to you. So there's a very brief sort of overview of the 4 different types of personality. And this can be really helpful for event planners to know as well, because if you get an inquiry that just because they fit into that certain group,
I don't know about you guys, but
may not
here he is, he's back.
Yeah, you've got me back if you're good. I was just sort of talking about, I don't know where you lost me, but I was talking about how people might not fit exactly into these groups, so they can sort of flow between different groups and categories. And so you might be talking to a group, let's say, who are lawyers and accountants, and how they'll want the stats, but you could be talking to a group of PR execs who want some entertainment, and a speaker booker would want to make sure that they're booking the right kind of people for their audience. But salespeople, I said I'd come back and talk about this. Salespeople actually are a really good blend of almost all of the different types that I mentioned, because they'll tend to blend in with whoever they're with. Give you an example of one of our speakers, how I saw them use this kind of really well. So I mentioned Dave Coplin earlier on. He's a former chief envisioning officer at Microsoft, and he was explaining AI to a major corporations of blues, I'll call them. And AI obviously could be a bit dry, but he also had some top execs in there. He had some salespeople in the room as well. But he engaged his audience with anecdotes at the beginning, so he got a lot of the yellows on side. And then he was altering his pace, so he was speeding up for the reds, slowing down for the greens, and he gave a lot of stats within his presentation, and then really brought the whole thing to life for each of those different groups. So I'd be interested, Neil, what do you think you are?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I am a mixture between a fiery red with sunshine yellow, with a little bit of with earth green. I think I'm everything but a cool blue. I'm like, I need to just know. Tell me what you need me to do. Tell me what it is. I'm a bit like that, but I also do need some detail, but I don't need to know every bit of it. I'm a probably typical event organizer. Event organizers, you can't be a perfectionist because the whole event suffers if you're just trying to concentrate on the 1%. So I'm probably a bit of everything else except the cool blue, I guess, which is handy as a Liverpool fan, as I said in the chat.
Exactly. How are people doing on the poll? What kind of information did they share?
So
with us
I've just put it on the thing. It says we've got 30% fiery red, 50% sunshine yellow, 10% earth green, and 10% cool blue.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting. So you've got a lot of yellow. Yeah.
A lot of yellow, sunshine yellow, 50%. Yeah. Is that what you expected?
I had no expectation at all. I wasn't sure what your group would entail, but there's some good information for you in terms of what your group want. They obviously like entertainment.
Yeah. Why are they tuning into me? I don't know.
Well, no, production. I mean, I was just thinking while I was watching the break there, what an honor it is to be involved in a really wonderful production like this. You've done a great job.
Oh, thank you. Well, take a bow, Callum and Dom and the stream team. I could take all the credit, but it's them doing it all, not me. I just put all the effort into getting everybody together and putting stuff together. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, so Neil, where are we? We've got about 5 minutes left. Is there anything you wanted to, any kind of really good takeaways, any kind of good do's and don'ts that people can come away with?
Well, what I'd love to do is just talk very quickly. I know we're kind of close to time, but there are 7 elements that are really critical to a presentation. I thought it would be useful, bearing in mind where the group is in terms of the presentations, to just talk through this very quickly. And what we could do is, if I've got a download that people can get called "How to Make Money as a Speaker," and if I run through these very quickly now, if you want more information, go and get the download, and it will give you that information in more depth for you to take a look at. So if I run through these steps, so step 1 would be, we've talked about this already, really, it's start with the right intention. This is about reverse engineering your talk. So who is actually going to be in your audience? Where do you want them to end up? And then at the end of your presentation, and then what do you need to do with them during that time? So that's sort of like pre-speaking. Second step is when you're actually in front of people, when you start speaking to your audience, outline where the presentation is going to go for them, and discuss what it is you're going to talk about, why it's really important, why it's really timely, and show them that they're in the right place. And then the third step is to position your topic. So this is about letting people know where you're going to go and exactly what they can expect during the time that they've got with you. And then the fourth step is building rapport. So we talked about developing credibility earlier. So I'm not going to add too much more here on that, but in the download, we'll give you more information on the length of this and also the pitfalls. If you don't respect this part of the presentation and you don't do it well, what can potentially happen for you. So we'll cover that in the download. And also step 5 then is delivering value. So this is the easy bit for speakers. This is where your expertise and knowledge comes in. So this bit will be second nature to you, especially like the lady who said she'd got the book written, because she's already probably got her methodology out there and in that book. So she'll be able to sort of break that down into a couple of bite-sized pieces that the audience could take away from them, sort of take away from the talk. And then step 6 would be building partnership with the audience. There are some very specific things to do with the audience. And if you're doing a sales presentation, if you're not at that 5K level and maybe you're selling from the stage, it's really critical you don't forget these pieces, because if you do, you'll likely get slaughtered when you finish. So that's step 6. Step 7 is the close and the pitch. So this is an invitation where you want to invite people to take the next step with you. So what action do you now want them to take, having heard you talk? So I've mentioned the download, which I think would be really valuable, especially for those speakers who are new and getting started or have done under 50 presentations. I think that download would be really invaluable for you. So that would really help you to make money as a speaker. Do you have a link that you can pop into the chat for that, Neil? Did I give you that?
I've just noticed, Neil, that Kelly has put it in the link in the chat, and guys, we'll also put it in the wrap up as well. So you can later on the group around in a couple of hours, we'll put down any useful stuff that following talking with Neil, you might benefit from. Neil, I've got a couple of killer questions for you, right?
Brilliant.
From me, right? Okay. So beware. Been thinking about these. So, do you have any quick ways to solve those 2 dreaded words, imposter syndrome? I guess it's quite easy for some people to think, oh God, why am I qualified to be talking up here to these people? Have you got any ways to overcome that?
The first thing I would say is there's a fantastic book out called The Alter Ego Effect. And in there, the author, I can't remember his name now, but he gives a fantastic exercise in there called the proclamation response. And, you ask that question, who am I to talk about this? Well, when you look back at your history, Neil, and you look back at the things that you do, and you start saying to yourself, who am I? And you say, well, I'm the guy that has got 21,000 people in Delegate Wranglers. I'm the guy who puts on a weekly podcast, an event that people tune into. I'm the guy that runs this fantastic. Do you see what I mean? So when you actually look at who you are and what you've done, you've got every reason under the sun probably to be that guy up on the stage.
Yeah, I think it's something that probably holds back a fair few amounts of people. They might feel that. Yeah. I think it's something I've overcome, but definitely I think that's a valid question for a lot of people. And then the other question I've got is, I've got one question from the audience, and also my last question is, what about nerves? Any tips for handling nerves on the stage? Is this something that you guys can help with coaching and things?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I would say if you're suffering from nerves is to remember to breathe. That's the most important thing, because if you start starving your brain of oxygen as you're going out to speak, it's not going to end well. So the first thing is breathe. And the other thing I would say as well is maybe start off slowly. I saw a speaker once. I really admired this guy, and I noticed that he was very present with his audience right from the word go. And what he would do is he would just start and he would say, hello, welcome. It's great to be here speaking to you. And each time he was pausing between those words, he was breathing. And I think that's the most important thing to control your nerves, is to breathe. The other thing is to make sure you prepare. Prepare your beginning and your end, because they're the 2 most important things. You'll find that you fill the middle quite easily. But prepare the middle.
I've often found as well, it's the thought of doing something is actually worse than actually doing it. And once you get up and get started, it's hard when you've got the hardest thing I think is when if you've got a tough crowd and you're not getting any nods or anything back from them. Yeah. That's a bit, that's a little bit more difficult. You feel a bit like you've got to perform differently. And really, you should just carry on with what you're saying.
I once gave a presentation to 250 barristers and civil servants, frontline workers. And they were the kind of audience that, most events I've ever been at and spoken at, I always get a round of applause before I've even started. This group didn't do that. It's the toughest gig that I think I've ever had. But just going back to nerves, I mean, you can control most things, but the hardest thing I've always found is the wobbly knee. Certainly when I started speaking and you were up standing in front of people and your knee starts twitching, that's been the hardest one to master and manage. But eventually that goes with enough practice.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'm going to recommend, guys. Do a weekly live Facebook live show. That helps with you conquering your nerves a little bit, because everything that can happen probably has happened on this show. So, you just got to deal with it as it comes and roll with the punches. I've got one last question, Neil, from... sorry, Neil, go on, carry on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the other thing people can do to get over those nerves is actually to actually do something like start a podcast or a YouTube channel, or something where you can actually just practice talking to camera, because it will start to still your nerves, because it's just practice. So that'd be the other thing I would say.
Totally agree. So the last question from Emily Newstead. Hi, Emily. How are you? How do you decide on the content to focus on within your speaking career, or do you build on the message or change the content? And if so, how often? What Emily's trying to say is it a good idea to have a couple of different presentations in the bag that are about slightly different aspects, or is it something that you should just develop as you go along with your experience? Great question.
A bit of both, actually. Bit of both. I mean, if you go back again to the lady who I can't remember her name now, who asked the question with the book, within that book, let's say she's got 7 pieces around her methodology. Yeah, Celia. So what I would recommend is you didn't ever go and speak to a group of people and give all of those 7 steps, if they're quite built out steps. But what you can do is give them one, especially if it's a difficult concept for people to understand. If it's the first time they're hearing it, just give them something they could take away and use. So that might be one talk, and you might have another presentation on another angle of the same philosophy, the same sort of methodologies. So you could use like the book, and you could divide that book up, and that could become your current talks. You could start with 1 or 2, but the other thing is to think about maybe each year maybe consider a new angle or a new piece that you could bring in that keeps things fresh. So there'd be a couple of things.
Yeah, fantastic, Neil. Well, I have really enjoyed this and learned so much from your talking today. And I'm going to be trying to work with you going forward in the future. I'll be filling out one of your little forums. So thank you, Neil. Thank you so much to you and Kelly in the chat room for all your help. And guys, we'll be putting as much information in there. But thanks again, Neil. I'll really appreciate it. Great job.
Thank you.
Great job. So guys, we are nearly at the end of the show. It's just going to leave me with a little bit of what's coming up in the next few weeks. So on Thursday, I think Callum's going to show a graphic for us. We have got another a Grow Your Business with the Superstars Zoom call, where I'm going to be talking to anybody who's considering joining the DW Superstars, and why you should really be considering this as an excellent business decision, particularly with the announcement by the government that live events are going to be coming back. Now is the time to really kickstart your return back to business, and this can really help you do it. And then coming up on the next few weeks on the DW live show, we've got some really fantastic masterclasses. I think Callum's going to show this one now. Here we go. Smartphone photography masterclass next week with Jeanette Lendon. Jeanette's been in the chat room today. that's going to be amazing. That's going to be, you know, how to learn how to use your smartphone, you know, for photography for your business, and how you can embellish it, you know, maybe how you should be doing some portrait shots and things like that, all different things. So look out for that. That's this time next week. Then the following week, we've got a content marketing masterclass with Pauline Krasniak. That's going to be amazing. That's looking at the role of influencers for all those shows, guys. And we will see you next week. Big thanks, as always, to our sponsors, Eventser, and also to Dom, Callum, and Ed from Stream for doing such a brilliant job with the production, and also to Events Case for registration services for these shows. So thank you, guys. Have a great week. Hope you enjoyed the show. Please tell everybody, spread the word, and we'll see you soon.